If you're not going to step up, then leave. That was the first thing my father said when I walked through the door. Not hello, not how was work, just that. I was still holding 2 grocery bags, heavy ones. My fingers were numb. My back burned from 10 hours at the office. I hadn't even taken my shoes off yet. I bought almond milk, olive oil, and Mom's favorite crackers, the exact brand she insisted on. I skipped lunch to get them. No one looked at me. No one offered help. The hallway smelled like bleach and cooked onions. It clung to the walls and my clothes. I placed the bags on the counter. My voice was quiet. I already contribute. I've been contributing. Dad's jaw tightened. That's not what it feels like. I looked at him, really looked, and something inside me shifted. I knew in that moment I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan. Nobody said anything. Not Mom folding laundry in the next room, not Kyle glued to the TV, not even a glance. I stood there, still in my work shoes, still holding the receipt in my pocket. $16, $48. All for them. Dad stepped forward. You live on your own, you've got a good job, but this household is drowning. I didn't speak. I waited. He kept going. I'm retired. Your mother's not well. Kyle's still figuring things out. We need more from you. My hand clenched around the edge of the bag. The crackers shifted, almost tore the bottom open. From the living room, Kyle called out, She acts like she's doing us a favor or something. Something behind my ribs twisted, tightened. I'm not acting, I said. I'm doing. Dad shook his head. Don't get dramatic. Mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. We just want everyone to do their part. I swallowed hard. Then why does it feel like mine's never enough? I let go of the bag. It slumped onto the counter with a soft thud. No one moved. No one asked if I was okay. I took a breath, the kind that sinks instead of lifts. I just got off work, I said, voice low. But if you want more, fine, I'll give you something. They watched me like I might cry or scream. I did neither. I walked to the front door. The hallway felt longer than usual. The walls, once familiar, felt like strangers now. I opened the door slowly. Cool air brushed against my cheek, and before stepping out, I turned just enough to speak without shaking. This house no longer has a daughter named Elena. I didn't slam the door, didn't rush, just stepped outside. For the first time, truly outside. They didn't follow, not even Kyle. And for once, their silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like permission, a quiet nod to everything I was about to reclaim. It started small, quiet, almost forgettable. I was 16 the first time I paid a bill. The lights were about to be shut off. Mom had overdrawn the account again. I used part of my grocery store paycheck, just enough to keep things running. She kissed my forehead. You're such a good girl, she said. You'll always take care of us. I smiled. Felt proud even. That sentence stayed with me. Lingered like a promise I didn't remember making. By 25, I was paying for Wi-Fi water groceries without being asked. No reminders, no thanks. Just quiet expectation. By 28, I was forwarding money for car insurance, covering Kyle's overdraft fees. He still got a new phone every Christmas. I hadn't upgraded mine in 4 years. Didn't seem urgent. I had other priorities. One afternoon, Dad's prescription wasn't covered. I drove across town to pick it up. No one offered to repay me. No one even asked if I had the money. Family supports each other, Mom would say. Then she'd send another list: errands, bills, groceries. I rarely said no. I wasn't raised to. I didn't need gifts. I didn't even want praise. I just wanted to be seen. Not for what I gave, but for who I was underneath it all. Still, the giving never stopped, and neither did the silence. I thought maybe I was imagining things, overreacting, being too sensitive. So one night, right before tax season, I opened my laptop, created a spreadsheet. 8 months of transactions, every utility, every grocery run, every co-signed loan, even Kyle's therapy bills, which I didn't know I was still paying. I added dates, amounts, reasons, line by line it filled. When I reached the bottom, the numbers stared back like a mirror. $18, $426.70. Not to shame them, not to get it back, just to see the truth in black and white, not guess, not wonder. To prove to myself I hadn't made this up, I printed the spreadsheet, thick black ink, clean lines, no emotion, just evidence. Then I taped it above my desk, right in my tiny apartment, next to the chipped lamp and secondhand bookshelf. It wasn't for them. They'd never see it, never ask. It was for me. A quiet reminder that I wasn't crazy, that it wasn't just a few little things, that I wasn't wrong to feel tired, so deeply tired. That night I made tea, mint and chamomile. I looked around the room. The silence felt strange, still not heavy, like space, like breath. I'd moved in with 2 suitcases, a coffee maker, and a bookshelf I built myself in an hour. No one helped, no one offered, and for the first time, that didn't hurt. The absence wasn't painful, it wasn't punishment. It felt like room to rest, room to exist. Not as someone's daughter, not as someone's safety net, just Elena, just me. I didn't decorate much. The carpet was old, the walls a shade of beige no one could name, but it was mine. Every inch, every quiet moment. The texts kept coming. Not daily, every other day. Moms were long winding laced with guilt. Dads were short. Call your mother, check the mail. Kyle texted when something broke, usually followed by a Venmo request. I didn't block them. I just turned off notifications. Let the silence stretch. Let it become something new. A language I had to relearn, where exhaustion didn't have to be translated into kindness, where no one reached for my energy without asking. My bank account slowed, no surprise withdrawals, no sudden overdraft alerts, just stillness. I started tracking my own spending again. Tiny things, herbal tea, a new shower curtain, groceries for one. At night I made real meals, nothing frozen, nothing rushed. Soft music played in the background, not to fill the space but to honor it. I didn't check my phone, I didn't need to. Some nights I'd lie in bed just listening to the ceiling fan hum. No knocks, no footsteps, no one needing anything. My body didn't feel tense anymore, didn't brace for the next demand, the next fire to put out. I started sleeping through the night, full, uninterrupted hours. 8 hours turned into 9 on weekends. No alarms, no guilt. There was no applause, no one watching, just the quiet sound of a life being rebuilt one breath at a time. The spreadsheet still hung on the wall, but I didn't open it much anymore. I didn't need to. The numbers had done their job. They'd told me the truth. Now the silence was doing the rest, healing what the math couldn't reach. The distance, as painful as it first was, did what confrontation never could. It gave me back myself, piece by piece, hour by hour. I stopped performing, stopped fixing, stopped folding myself into their emergencies, and for the first time that felt like love. One Friday morning I checked the weather. Cool, clear skies. I decided to walk to work. The air felt honest. It didn't ask for anything. Didn't expect gratitude. Just existed. Like me. Halfway down the block my phone buzzed. Another message from home. I didn't flinch. Didn't pause. Just slipped it back into my bag and kept walking. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since I stepped away. Since I said no. Since I stopped explaining myself. 3 weeks of quiet dinners, long uninterrupted sleep, checking my own account without anxiety clawing at my chest. For once I knew what was mine, what I earned, what I chose to keep. Then the following Wednesday, as I stepped into the office lobby, another buzz, this time from Dad. Why didn't the card go through? No greeting, no question mark, just those 7 words. Like I'd missed a shift at a job I never applied for. I didn't reply, didn't stop walking. I placed my phone face down on my desk, poured myself a cup of coffee, like it was any other morning. By noon, Kyle was calling. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, I answered. I wanted to hear how far they'd stretch before admitting anything. You knew we needed that money, he snapped. I didn't speak, not yet. You think you can just stop helping? You think you're better than us because of your little apartment and your stupid spreadsheet? Still, I said nothing. Then click. He hung up. No goodbye, just a scoff. That evening, I opened my laptop, logged into the public property portal, typed in the house address, the one I grew up in, pre-foreclosure, final notice issued. My heart didn't drop, my hands didn't shake, just stared at the screen. Not shocked, not even angry, only cold, not the kind that punishes, the kind that understands finally what was always true. I had sent them money, month after month, $1,300, sometimes more. For nearly a year, I thought I was keeping things afloat, thought I was helping, thought I was preventing collapse. But I'd never seen a mortgage bill. Never once. They never offered, never explained, just asked. And I gave. Now I saw it clearly. The money didn't go to the bank. It went elsewhere. Patches, excuses, Kyle's broken car, Dad's dental work, groceries, maybe more. I didn't need to know the details. I didn't ask. Because the truth was enough. They hadn't needed a daughter. They needed coverage, a quiet, reliable system that never said no. And that system just broke. I closed the browser tab, not with rage, just completion. I poured a glass of water, sat on the floor beside the little table, no music, no noise, just stillness. And the understanding that I was never meant to carry all of this. Not then, not ever. They would scramble now, blame me, guilt me, twist silence into selfishness. But I wasn't part of the structure anymore. I'd stepped out, stepped back, and let gravity do its work. The phone lit up again. Mom's name. I let it ring. Didn't touch it. I hadn't planned to call. I'd rehearsed silence like armor. But seeing the foreclosure notice, it didn't enrage me. It closed a door. Sunday afternoon came. They were always home then. Dad watching the game. Mom folding laundry, TV humming in the background. Kyle pretending to search job listings. I picked up the phone, dialed the house line. It rang twice. Hello, Mom's voice, sweet, stretched thin. Put me on speaker, I said. A pause, then a soft beep. In the background, I heard the creak of a kitchen chair, a soda can opening, paper rustling. I'm here, Dad said. Same, Kyle muttered. I inhaled slowly, just once. Where did the money go? I asked, even though I already knew. Silence, what Mom asked, soft, careful. Like maybe she misheard. I sent over $1,300 every month, I said, for nearly a year. I checked the mortgage, I continued. It's in foreclosure, so I'll ask again. Where did the money go? Mom cleared her throat. Your father had dental work, she began. Then the water heater broke. Kyle's car needed repairs and groceries. Prices keep going up, Kyle cut in. You act like we went on vacation. Stuff came up. We were going to sort it, Dad added quietly. It's not like we meant to deceive you. Things just got ahead of us. I didn't yell, didn't sigh. I kept my voice steady. You never showed me a bill, never asked if I could afford it, never offered repayment. You just assumed I'd cover it. There was no apology, only the sound of breathing, heavy, uneven. Then Mom said softly, we're family. You shouldn't need a contract. And I thought, that's exactly the problem. I nodded to myself, not out loud, just enough to feel it. That's the thing I said. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have my name on the deed. Didn't even have a seat at the table unless I brought something to it. No one responded. The silence on the other end wasn't confusion. It was discomfort. I read the emails, I continued. I heard the voicemails. You called me cold, selfish, dramatic. A pause. Not one of them denied it, but I'm none of those things, I said. I was your daughter. And you turned me into your donor. Long breath. Not from me, from Dad. Then his voice low and brittle. You don't understand. Without you, we're losing everything. I looked out my window. The same modest tree swayed, its branches still bare from winter. No, I said. Everything was lost the moment you started seeing me as a balance sheet. Then I pressed end. No anger, no drama, just done. I set the phone down, face down, didn't look at it again. Beside it sat an envelope, thin white familiar handwriting. Return address theirs. I hadn't opened it yet. Didn't need to. But after the call, I slid a finger under the flap, pulled out one folded sheet. Final notice. Delinquent. Default. Eviction. Proceedings. My name wasn't on the deed, it had never been. But the letter found me anyway, like it wanted me to see it, like they needed me to feel one last tremor of guilt. I folded the paper. Once. Twice. Then tore it in half. Not out of rage. There was no rage left, only a quiet understanding. This burden, it was never mine to carry. I opened our old group chat, thread after thread of grocery receipts, birthday photos I'd paid for, passive-aggressive emoji replies. I scrolled until my thumb ached. Then I typed one line, "I'm not your backup plan anymore. Goodbye." I hit send. Then I left the group. After I left the group, I blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Kyle. The phone went still. Not silent. Stillness is different. Silence waits. It carries tension like something might return. Stillness accepts. It closes the door gently. I closed the banking app, the one I had checked every day to make sure they were okay. Then I opened another one, new, clean, just for me. No transfers out, no pending bills, only quiet deposits, small ones. I'd started this account a few months ago, secretly, hesitantly, not sure if I was allowed to have something that was only mine. That evening, I walked past a boutique, the kind I used to rush by, too expensive, too indulgent, but I stopped, went in, tried on a pair of soft leather shoes. They fit. I paid in full. No discount, no guilt. And when I walked out, I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was finally returning to myself. That night, I made dinner just for one. Real food, not frozen, not rushed. I poured a glass of wine, lit a candle I'd been saving since last Christmas. The flame flickered steadily, like it knew something had settled. Not in anger, but in peace. The spreadsheet still hung above my desk. I glanced at it, but didn't feel the need to read. The numbers didn't hold me anymore. The boundary wasn't in the math. It was in the breath I could now take without flinching. They would call it betrayal or abandonment. Selfishness. Let them. They had taken my time, my energy, my care. I had given everything until there was nothing left. Now I had given one last thing, a clean goodbye, and the space it left behind wasn't empty. It was shaped like peace. I curled up on the couch. The new shoes sat quietly by the door. No noise, no buzzing phone. Just me, just quiet. And it was enough. Later that evening, I opened my laptop, not to check statements, not to calculate, but to open a tab I hadn't touched in years. Flight search. No destination typed yet, just the quiet idea that maybe finally I could go. The list had lived in my drawer for months. Torn notebook paper edges, curled corners smudged. Places I dreamed of. Names I never said aloud. Because back then, dreams felt expensive, out of place. But now they felt like options. I hovered over one line. Maine. I didn't know anyone there. That was the point. A place with cold mornings and coastal quiet, where silence could be scenic, not sharp. I didn't book anything, not yet. But I left the tab open, pinned it to the top, visible, waiting. Then I closed my laptop, looked around my little apartment. The candle still flickered, dinner dishes clean in the sink, and in that small, still moment, I knew something had shifted. I was no longer surviving. I was preparing. The dining table was small, pressed wood a little uneven, but it held enough. A slow cooker of lentils, someone's famous spinach dip, cornbread still warm in foil. Laughter drifted in from the kitchen. Nora and Gerald debated over chili recipes. Lighthearted, easy. In the center of the table, lemon bars, made from scratch. My contribution. I hadn't hosted in years. Not because I couldn't, but because I never believed people would show up without expecting something. Now they came. Not for favors, just for food and company. We sat cross-legged on the floor, plates balanced on folded napkins, newspaper lining the edge of the rug. No one asked for anything extra. No one hinted. No weight in the room. Just warmth. Not just from the food, from being allowed to simply be. At one point, someone asked why I never talked about my family. After the dishes were rinsed, the laughter faded. Everyone left with hugs, not expectations. I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, sat by the window. The rosemary in the planter beside me had started to sprout. Small leaves, still soft, but they smelled strong when I crushed one between my fingers. I'd started planting things in spring, not just herbs, habits. On Saturdays, I walked to the farmer's market, no rush, no lists. On Wednesdays, I took a yoga class. My phone stayed in my bag. Some mornings, I walked before work. No notifications, no inbox waiting like a fire alarm. In the still moments between everything, I wrote lists, not of bills, but of books I wanted to read, places I wanted to go. Maine still sat at the top, still just an idea, but it felt closer now, a place where quiet wasn't punishment, where space didn't mean loss, where things could grow, even me. The money I once wired to save someone else's house was now quietly building something of my own. A solo trip, a better mattress, a coat I wouldn't feel guilty wearing, things that didn't require permission, didn't need justifying, didn't come with strings. I used to think home meant shared blood, shared walls, shared weight, but now I knew better. Home was where I could breathe. It was in my little routines. The scent of lemon bars cooling on the counter, the warmth of a cardigan I bought for myself, the way the fan hummed without tension in the air. It was in the text from Nora asking for my lemon bar recipe, not because she needed me, but because she remembered. It was in the tiny rosemary plant turning toward the light. No one asked where I was. No one expected me to fix, fund, or fill, and that absence for the first time felt like presence. My own. Fully. Finally. Home wasn't a house with debt I didn't cause. It wasn't a dinner table I had to earn a seat at. It was here in stillness that didn't collapse into guilt. In quiet that didn't mean distance or punishment. It was in the soft light hitting the kitchen counter at 7 a.m. The sound of the kettle, the smell of clean sheets. It was in the ease of hosting without measuring how much I gave, without needing a thank you to make it worth it. It was in the simple fact that after they left, nothing broke. No tension remained, no exhaustion crept in. The walls didn't echo with blame. The air stayed light. That night, I folded a clean sheet of paper, wrote at the top packing list, Maine. Then I set it beside my tea. No one knew, no one asked. And for once, that made it more real because it was mine, not shared, not sacrificed, just mine. The list was short, a sweater, notebook, walking shoes, nothing fancy, nothing urgent, just what I wanted to bring. For the first time, I wasn't packing out of reaction, not running, not escaping, not rescuing anyone. I was simply preparing, not for them, for me. I circled the word coastline twice in the notebook beside the list. I didn't know what town I'd land in, didn't need to. I just wanted somewhere with sea air and no history. Somewhere I wasn't needed, only allowed. I searched for rentals with porches, windows facing east, small kitchens because I only cooked for one. I paused on one listing, nothing special, but it had a tree just outside the bedroom window. That mattered, not for any reason I could explain, only that it felt right. I saved it, tucked the thought away like you would a letter you're not ready to send but already know you will. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It didn't knock, didn't announce itself. It came in moments, small, soft. Like the way the light fell on my kitchen counter when I wasn't rushing out the door. Like the silence that followed sleep, not exhaustion. It came in a grocery aisle where I chose things just for me. Chamomile tea, fresh bread, strawberries. Not a list someone texted. Not a favor someone forgot to thank me for. It came in knowing my phone wouldn't ring with another request. Another fire. Another guilt-wrapped task. I didn't need to say no anymore. I just wasn't available. Not out of punishment, but preservation. I walked home slower these days. Let the breeze touch my face. Watch the sky shift. And when I got home, there was only me. No one waiting, no one needing. Just quiet. And in that quiet, finally, I began to understand what being safe actually felt like. I used to shrink, apologize when I took up space, justify every choice, explain every boundary. But now, I move through the world with a quieter kind of certainty. I didn't owe anyone answers. not about where I was going or why I left. I bought flowers just because they were beautiful, yellow tulips. I put them in a jar next to the rosemary. I wore the earrings Mom once called too loud. They sparkled in the sun and I let them. I laughed louder, sat in the sun longer, let joy linger without earning it first. One afternoon, I passed a family at the park. Parents, kids, noise. It didn't ache the way it used to. It didn't press against my ribs like a question. It just was. And I was too. Complete, without being tied to anyone else's version of what a daughter should be. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. And freedom, I learned, doesn't always need to be loud. I stopped translating exhaustion into kindness. Stopped turning obligation into love. There were no more lists taped to the fridge, no errands slipped into casual calls, no sudden texts starting with, "Can you just..." I deleted the shared calendar, removed the reminders, unsubscribed from their emergencies. My time was mine, my quiet earned. When I felt lonely, and sometimes I didn't reach back, I reached inward. I called Nora. We met for coffee, talked about books, not burdens. I baked lemon bars again, not because anyone asked, just because I wanted to. Kyle never texted, Dad didn't write, Mom sent one letter, I didn't open it. I placed it in a drawer, not out of spite, but because I'd read enough. Every time I walked past the drawer, I felt nothing, not anger, not fear, just stillness, just distance, the healthy kind. The kind that lets you breathe without asking who's suffocating because you stopped. I didn't check their social media, didn't ask mutual friends, didn't wonder how they were managing. I used to carry that worry like it was stitched into my spine. Now I let it go, not because I stopped caring, but because I started caring for myself more. There's a difference. I went through my phone and deleted old voicemails, the ones that started sweet and ended with guilt. The ones where I could hear how tired I was, even in my silence. I unfollowed their lives, unsubscribed from the drama, stepped off the stage they kept pulling me back to. I wasn't their audience anymore, wasn't their safety net, wasn't their storyline. Some days I thought of them. But the ache was dull now, like an old bruise, not a wound. And when I caught my reflection in the window one morning, carrying fresh bread and a second cup of coffee, I smiled. Because I knew the second cup was just for me. I used to think saving a family meant sacrificing yourself. Now I saw it differently. Sometimes the thing you save is the part of you that almost disappeared trying. I looked around my apartment. It was still small, still imperfect, but it felt honest. The walls didn't ask for anything. The furniture didn't complain. Nothing here relied on guilt. I had a shelf of books I'd never had time to read. Now I did. A jar of coins sat by the door, spare change from days I didn't have to lend it all away. And the rosemary by the window was thriving, slow, steady growth. I didn't track how often I smiled, didn't document healing, but I felt it. In the looseness of my breath, in the quiet between tasks. I used to send money to keep their world standing. Now I was building mine, brick by brick, piece by piece. And it didn't collapse every time I paused to rest. There was no big milestone. No dramatic moment of victory. Just small, steady proof that I was okay. Like the way I filled my own fridge without guessing someone else's cravings. Or how the laundry stayed folded because no one rushed in asking for favors mid-cycle. One morning, I bought a better blanket. Softer, heavier. The kind that holds you without asking questions. It arrived in a brown box. No note. No occasion. I wrapped it around my shoulders and made coffee without checking my phone. No one was waiting, no one needed anything, and I didn't feel empty. I felt full, in a quiet, lasting way. For the first time in years, nothing urgent followed me. I wasn't falling behind, I wasn't chasing approval, I wasn't proving my worth with receipts or rescue. I had enough. Not too much, not less, just enough. And that I realized was the kind of wealth no one could spend but me. I used to shrink to fit the space they left for me, kept my voice soft, kept my needs smaller, believed love meant being useful, even invisible. But now I wasn't asking permission to exist fully. I wore colors I used to avoid, cooked meals just for taste, not thrift, played music loud without worrying who it might bother. I started dancing while folding laundry. Not well, not for anyone, just because it felt good. No one told me to sit down, no one rolled their eyes. The apartment felt lighter. Not because it changed, because I did. I stopped looking at my phone after 8 p.m. Not as a rule, just a rhythm that made sense. I didn't expect them to call anymore. And if they did, I didn't owe an answer. I wasn't cold, I was whole. And wholeness meant never again needing to earn my place by disappearing. I'd stayed small long enough. Now I filled my own life. And it held. There was no grand apology, no letter explaining everything, no tearful reunion, just distance. And the space it gave me, they didn't reach out again. Not really. A forwarded email from Dad once. No message, just a utility bill attached. I didn't open it, didn't reply. There was a time I would have panicked, dropped everything, sent money by noon. Now I closed the email and opened a book instead. I didn't need a final scene, no dramatic goodbye. No one running after me in the rain. Some endings are quiet, some stories don't get rewritten, they just end. And that's okay. I wasn't looking for closure from them. I was building it slowly with every cup of tea that didn't come with guilt, every Sunday that belonged only to me, every night I fell asleep without feeling like someone's unpaid debt. No more curtain call, no need to explain. The show was over, and I had already walked off stage on my own terms. Some nights I still woke up expecting a notification. Some part of me wired to respond, to fix, to give. But the screen stayed dark, and slowly that stopped feeling like absence. It felt like presence, like quiet that chose me back. I started keeping a journal. Nothing fancy, just notes from the day, what I cooked, how the sky looked, what didn't hurt anymore. One entry just said, "I didn't say sorry today," and I smiled when I wrote it. I bought new curtains, a soft blue, let more light in. My home wasn't big, but it breathed with me. Moved at my pace, no locked doors, no waiting lists of demands. I slept with the windows open when the air was warm, and when it rained, I let it. There was nothing left to brace against, nothing chasing me. Just the hum of stillness and the slow, steady realization that this peace, this life was no longer borrowed. It was mine. Sometimes I wondered what happened after I stopped sending money. If the water got shut off, if the fridge emptied, if Kyle finally got a job. But I didn't ask, and they didn't tell me. And the house, it didn't collapse overnight. It never does. It just creaks quieter, holds on a little less each season. The weight I used to carry wasn't saving them. It was only delaying what they refused to face. I used to think I was holding everything together. Turns out they were fine enough to function without my oxygen. They just didn't want to. There's a difference. Now when I walk past houses with porches, I don't imagine what it would be like to go back. I imagine what it means to not be needed by people who never saw how much it cost me. And in that thought, there's no shame, only relief. Because the house didn't fall, but I stopped being the one holding up its walls. I used to picture myself in their living room, a ghost really present but not visible, useful but not whole. They'd sit around the table, pass dishes, talk about bills or sports or the news, and I'd be there only if I brought something with me. I don't imagine that anymore. Now I picture tables with empty chairs that stay empty. Not because someone left in anger, but because they finally chose peace. I didn't lose my family. I lost a role that kept me small. I stopped performing as the dependable one, the fixer, the silent provider. They called it cold, but I call it clear, because now I don't sit at tables where I have to trade pieces of myself for a seat. I make my own table, even if it's quiet, even if I sit there alone. At least I show up as a whole person, not a ghost, not a wallet, just me. I used to think love had to be earned, through effort, through silence, through sacrifice. Like if I gave enough, they'd finally see me, not as a resource, but as a person. But love that demands proof isn't love, it's debt. And I was done living as someone else's repayment plan. I stopped measuring my worth by what I could offer. Stopped waiting for validation that never came. Now I validate myself in the way I speak gently to my own thoughts, in how I rest without guilt, in every decision that doesn't ask will they approve. The shift was slow, but it stayed. One morning I looked in the mirror. No makeup, no pressure, just my face, my own eyes. And for the first time, I didn't see the girl trying to be good enough. I saw a woman who no longer confuses being useful with being loved, and that felt like coming home to a place that was mine all along. There was a life waiting for me the whole time. Not loud, not flashy, just steady. It didn't beg for attention, didn't demand sacrifice. It waited while I carried too much, while I kept giving to stay needed. Now that life had room to unfold, I found it in soft routines, watering plants, changing sheets, reading past midnight because no one needed anything at 6 a.m. I found it in meals eaten slowly in music. I chose in silence I didn't fear. No one told me freedom could be this quiet. No applause, no audience, just peace that held its shape. And as the days passed, I noticed something new. I no longer replayed the conversations, no longer rehearsed what I could have said because the story was no longer theirs. It was mine now, in full, not written for forgiveness, not hoping for return, just living. And finally, that was enough to feel whole. I used to think forgiveness had to be mutual, an exchange, a spoken moment, a clean slate. But some forgiveness happens in silence, alone, unwitnessed. I didn't need their apology to let go. I forgave them when I stopped waiting for them to change, when I stopped rewriting the past, trying to make it softer. I forgave them when I stopped explaining myself to ghosts of conversations that never really listened, not for their sake, for mine, because carrying the hurt meant carrying them still, and I was tired, not bitter, just done. One evening, I wrote their names on a piece of paper, folded it once, then again, and dropped it into the recycling bin. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. It was quiet, final. Like closing a drawer you no longer need to open. I didn't forget, but I no longer flinched. And that's what forgiveness looked like for me, peace with no permission required. Some nights, I'd sit at the table with a blank page and start writing letters I'd never send. One to Dad, one to Mom, one to Kyle. Not to reopen anything, just to release what still lingered. I wrote things like I tried. I needed you to ask how I was. I wasn't made to carry all of you. The words didn't shake, they didn't bleed, they landed clean like rain on dry pavement, quiet, undramatic. I tore each letter into small pieces, dropped them in the bin, felt no ache watching them fall, because those letters weren't for them. They were for the part of me that still wanted to be heard even in silence. And when I stood up, the room felt lighter, not empty, but cleared. Sometimes healing isn't a leap. It's a slow return, one unspoken truth at a time. I made tea, lit a candle, and let the words stay behind where they belonged on paper, not in me. They never reached out again, not in words that mattered. A holiday card once unsigned, no note inside, just a photo of a wreath taped to an empty front porch. I didn't reply, didn't keep it. Because not all silence is an invitation, sometimes it's a boundary. I stopped imagining what would happen if I showed up again. If I knocked, if they said, "We miss you," because I finally understood I didn't want back in. Not to a house that needed me broken to feel whole. Some doors stay shut for good reason, and not every ending needs a second chapter. I built something else, with quiet mornings, meals shared with friends, a soft couch that only holds joy. That porch they sent the one in the photo, it wasn't mine anymore, and I didn't miss it. Because peace isn't something you find in old rooms, it's what you create when you choose not to return. Even when the door's unlocked, I didn't need to tell the whole story to everyone I met. Some chapters are only mine to carry, and that's okay. When people asked, I simply said I chose a different life, and let that be enough, because it was. I packed for Maine. The list I wrote weeks ago sat folded on the counter. Simple things, warm socks, a coat that finally fit. I booked the ticket. One way, no explanation needed. The day before I left, I walked through my apartment slowly, ran my fingers across the bookshelf, watered the rosemary, turned off every light except the one in the kitchen, just enough to say, this was home, and now I get to build another. The suitcase waited by the door, so did I, calm, unhurried, because the goodbye already happened, the grief had already passed, and what remained was space, not to escape, but to begin. Not the end of a story, the start of one I would finally write for myself. If this story touched something inside you or reminded you of your own journey, please share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to walk through more stories like this together, hit subscribe and join the community. There's so much more waiting to be shared. Thank you for watching.